the United States and Iran have agreed to end the back-and-forth fighting around the Strait of Hormuz and resume peace talks to end the 5-month war. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, citing officials from the U.S. and other countries involved in the negotiations. A senior Trump administration official tells MS Now that technical talks are on track for the coming days as planned. This potential cooling comes after the two sides traded strikes again late last week and throughout the weekend, stemming from efforts to reopen the strait without Iran's oversight. A multinational maritime body overseen by the U.S. Navy said it would expand a route near Oman for inbound and outbound traffic. Iran then attacked vessels going through a route near the Omani side, prompting the U.S. military to retaliate. Tehran later hit back by launching drone and missile attacks targeting U.S. assets in Bahrain and Kuwait, as the country's foreign minister reiterated the claim that Iran alone has the authority to govern the strait. So who's agreeing on what here? Meanwhile, fighting in Lebanon continues to threaten any lasting regional peace deal, with Hezbollah's leader saying the group reserves the right to defend our homeland and people and will not stop until Israel withdraws from Lebanon. So, Richard Haass, is there really a peace deal? Is this over, or are we just sort of getting by as things pop up?
There is no peace. There's not even a robust ceasefire. What you have is a vaguely worded MOU, and the sort of thing you just talked about, Mika, the idea that there was several days of violence in the Strait of Hormuz. It'll die down and then it'll pop up. Iran wants to have long-term influence over, control over the Strait of Hormuz, its most potent weapon, and one has to assume that periodically, almost like station identification, Iran is going to pop up and assert it. In Lebanon, you have a deal between Israel and the government of Lebanon that leaves out Hezbollah. So that's not a peace deal, and we can go around the region. But no, in order to have peace, you need to have not only a balance, but you have to have a joint willingness, a joint commitment to it. And you don't have it. You don't have either a military balance right now, and you certainly don't have a joint commitment. So stop, start, whatever metaphor you want to use, but the one word we ought not to use is peace. This is not a peace deal.
Yeah, and I'm going to get back to you, Richard, with more on this, but it's also rinse and repeat over and over again, the same story, and I just wonder, John Heilman, looking at the politics of this as well as the foreign policy. I mean, President Trump accused Iran of violating the ceasefire and says these incredibly extreme statements like this, you know, the republic will cease to exist. He said it before. At what point do these threats prove to be not only illegitimate because he doesn't follow through on them, but it shows Iran repeatedly mocking and humiliating anything the President of the United States says?
Big, I think we reached that point a while ago. If you're asking whether the threats have started to ring hollow, and that most of Iran's actions reflect a sense that they don't believe that the president's threats, the most existential of them, are going to come to pass anytime soon, and because they understand that the president is operating according to a timetable and under the pressures of the midterm elections. And Richard, I guess that's the question I wanted to turn back to you, which is, you know, you hear more and more people who are close to this process and people who are watching it with the greatest kind of care that what they imagine happening here is these tenuous ceasefires going, not just kind of being in place for the rest of the 60 days from the MOU, but being extended kind of indefinitely out into the future to carry both sides through November at a minimum, and that then we'll actually maybe start to see some kind of change in the dynamics of the conflict, and that Iran is worried about precisely that in the long run, that what President Trump will do is to start to wage war in a more serious way, a more aggressive way against them again, once he gets past the midterm election day. What do you hear on that front, and how plausible do you think some of those kind of long-running, endless war scenarios are as we sit here now?
Look, it's quite possible. I've heard that. In some ways, what we're talking about is almost the difference between a stop-start and what you talked about is the intensity of resumed warfare. So either way, I think we're not looking at peace. We're not looking at a strong ceasefire. We're looking at intermittent violence. But the question is, how high is the violence? The problem for the United States is reclosing the strait, even if it's after the midterms, causes enormous economic hardship. Plus, as we saw in the last 24 hours, strikes against Bahrain and Kuwait show the real vulnerability of the region. That's Iran's, Iran has two massive pieces of leverage here. One is strait closure. The other is to hit the energy or water infrastructure of its neighbors. And even though it would make itself vulnerable in the course of doing that, the implications for the region and the world would be calamitous, far worse, actually, than anything we've seen to date. So the resumption of significant hostilities after November, I'll be honest with you, John, I don't see where it gets us anyplace better. I just don't see the logic. If more military force would have worked, we would have done it already. And everything we've done hasn't brought us to success. So I don't see where doing it after November changes the bottom line here.